If you've landed here, you're clearly serious about survival history and practical self-reliance, and I want you to stick around because this video could change the way you think about food security. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button for Legacy of Survival, because here we explore the hidden lessons of history that can help you thrive when times get tough. Today, we're uncovering forgotten wartime crops, plants that sustained entire nations under siege, crops that once fed soldiers and civilians alike, and crops you can grow today with minimal effort for a virtually perpetual food source. During wars, famine, and economic collapse, people didn't have supermarkets or delivery services. They relied on certain hardy, low-maintenance plants that could keep growing season after season, often with little intervention. These aren't your standard tomatoes and carrots. These are crops that have been largely forgotten by modern gardeners, yet their historical significance is staggering. Understanding them is both a walk through history and a practical guide to survival. Certain crops survived because they required almost no care. During both world wars, governments promoted certain vegetables and grains for their ability to survive in poor soil, resist pests, and provide maximum nutrition with minimal labor. One example is salsify, sometimes called the oyster plant because of its subtle flavor. Salsify was a staple in European wartime gardens because it grows in almost any soil, survives harsh winters, and can be harvested over a long period. To grow it today, plant its seeds in deep, loose soil in early spring. Once established, it requires little more than occasional weeding, and it can remain in the ground all winter, harvested as needed for soups or roasted dishes. Another wartime favorite was kohlrabi. Unlike modern cabbages, kohlrabi matures quickly, resists pests naturally, and produces edible leaves and bulbs. During World War II, urban victory gardens heavily featured kohlrabi because it could feed families in small plots and produce harvest after harvest. Today you can plant it in raised beds or even large containers. Start seeds indoors, transplant after frost, and harvest before the bulbs become too fibrous. Even if you forget a patch in your garden, kohlrabi often self-seeds for the next season. Perennial vegetables can provide food year after year without replanting. History shows that certain perennials became staples because they reduced labor while guaranteeing food security. Jerusalem artichoke, for instance, was cultivated in Europe not just for its tubers, but for its resilience. These plants can grow in poor soil, survive drought, and spread rapidly, effectively becoming a living food reserve. To cultivate Jerusalem artichokes, plant tubers in early spring in well-drained soil. They will take over sections of your garden if left unchecked, but that's exactly what makes them ideal for perpetual food in a survival context. Every year, the tubers come back, providing a reliable source of carbohydrates when other crops fail. Similarly, perennial onions and Egyptian walking onions are almost entirely self-sustaining. Once planted, they continue to produce year after year without replanting. Egyptian walking onions produce small bulbils at the top of their stalks, which eventually fall to the ground and grow into new plants. This self-propagating quality meant that wartime families could plant once and harvest for decades. Practically, you can create a dedicated corner of your garden for these onions, ensuring a near-constant supply of fresh alliums without needing to rotate crops. Root vegetables stored underground were vital during shortages. Root vegetables have always been a cornerstone of survival diets, and history tells us that crops like rutabagas and parsnips were essential for sustaining populations during extended conflict. Rutabagas, for instance, were widely grown in Scandinavian countries during wartime because of their ability to stay in the ground until winter and to store well in root cellars. To grow them today, sow seeds in early spring or late summer, thin seedlings to prevent crowding, and when harvest time comes, store roots in sand or sawdust to prolong shelf life. The practical takeaway here is that you don't need a massive plot to start a perpetual garden. Just select crops with historical precedents for resilience and self-seeding, interplant perennial vegetables with quick-growing annuals to, really maximize your space. Rotate root crops to preserve soil fertility, but let perennials like Jerusalem artichoke and walking onions establish themselves in corners where they can self-propagate. For example, plant a patch of salsify and kohlrabi near your compost heap. The nutrients will feed them naturally, reducing your workload. Additionally, observe the lessons wartime gardeners practiced: minimal intervention, thoughtful crop selection, and maximizing yield in poor soil. This approach is not only historically accurate, but also aligns perfectly with modern survival strategies. Even small backyard gardens can become near self-sufficient food sources if these principles are applied consistently. The crops we've discussed, salsify, kohlrabi, Jerusalem artichoke, and walking onions, are more than just historical curiosities. They are living lessons in resilience, endurance, and practicality. By reintroducing these crops into your garden, you're not only cultivating food, you're cultivating a piece of history. You're honoring the ingenuity of wartime gardeners and giving yourself a reliable, low-maintenance food source that can truly stand the test of time. If this guide has sparked new ideas for your survival garden or, deepened your appreciation for history, subscribe to Legacy of Survival to continue exploring the hidden lessons of the past. Share this video with fellow history enthusiasts and survivalists, because forgotten crops are not just plants, they are keys to sustainable living. Dive in, start planting, and let history feed your future.